Hey everybody, welcome back. Wayne here. This week, I'm going to talk about trauma bonding and a little bit of neuroscience as it relates to trauma bonding. Because you know the discovery of your spouse's affair or sexual addiction triggered a tidal wave of intense emotions. Emotions like shock and rage and fear, sadness, confusion, even physical pain, just to name a few of the common responses to the pain of infidelity. Patrick Carnes, a pioneer in the treatment of sexual addiction, says that infidelity can be as traumatic as sexual assault. And after the initial shock of confusion, most betrayed spouses struggle for quite some time to regain control over the turbulent emotions that triggers and reminders bring. Betrayed partners are going to want to know the details about the affair, how it started, where it started, how often they met, and when did it happen, and why did it happen now, just to name a few of the questions. There are a lot of questions, and most betrayed spouses will wonder about their own self-worth for a while. And the trauma from betrayal creates the same symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD symptoms are generally grouped into three types or three categories: intrusive thoughts, avoidance, and hypervigilance. Intrusive thoughts are things like these recurrent and uninvited, upsetting reminders of the traumatic event. Flashbacks, reliving the event again, and then nightmares. And you all know, many of you know, that nightmares are a very common thing with betrayal trauma. Avoidance is the other one, and that is like trying to avoid thinking about it or talking about the traumatic event, or avoiding places or activities or things that remind you of that event. And then negative changes in thinking and mood. And last, there's this hyperarousal, and it's classified as this persistent and jittery feelings. You're always on the lookout for danger, and it looks like difficulty sleeping, or easily startled, or trouble concentrating and irritability. And symptoms usually vary over time and from person to person. These same symptoms also lead to negative changes in thinking and mood, and can also include things like negative thoughts about yourself, hopelessness, forgetfulness, and a lack of interest in the activities that you once enjoyed. Betrayal trauma can literally change your physiology due to the neurobiological changes that are going on in your limbic system. Because of these changes, your body goes into fight, flight, freeze, and sometimes collapse. Now bear with me for a minute. I'm going to talk a little bit about neuroscience. I'm going to keep it simple because I'm kind of simple, and some of this stuff is controversial. Not everybody agrees on how it happens. But at least at this point in my career and my understanding, this is how I conceptualize it. In fight or flight, our amygdala senses danger, and it doesn't know how intense that danger is. It just knows that there's danger out there. And then your hypothalamus activates the sympathetic nervous system, and the adrenal glands respond by releasing epinephrine, also called adrenaline. And on a good day, adrenaline makes our heart beat faster and our lungs breathe more efficiently. It causes the blood vessels to send more blood to the brain and muscles and makes your brain more alert to the situation at hand. And it raises your blood sugar level so you have more energy. But when we're feeling threatened, either by emotional or physical pain, it's all about keeping us safe and alive. When the threat level reaches a certain threshold, the hippocampus signals the adrenal glands to release even more cortisol. And the hippocampus works in conjunction with the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, the adrenals, and other areas of the brain. It's necessary for cognitive functions such as learning and memory and behavior regulation. It plays this key role in gathering and storing information and then later retrieving that information. But during times of stress, your brain needs to focus on sensation and quick problem solving. So then the hippocampus function is altered. It's less functional during times of both acute and chronic stress. It has these cortisol receptors all over it, which is why stress can so readily impede this part of the brain and making access to short and long-term memory problematic. In the freeze response, all that same stuff that I just mentioned is going on, but our subconscious has decided that the stress is just too dangerous. Our sympathetic nervous system is no longer solely in charge, and the backside of the vagus nerve is activated. It's called the dorsal vagal, and it yanks us into this self-protection mode. And when we experience extreme danger, real or perceived, we can shut down and feel or appear calm, but in reality, we're emotionally numb or frozen. And then last is collapse. Collapse is really different, very different from freeze. It's this state of hypoarousal. Your sympathetic nervous system and the dorsal vagal shut down. You are no longer looking for ways to survive, which is fight or flight, and instead, you enter a state of physical and emotional collapse. This is where you may not be able to speak, or you feel detached or disconnected from your body. Your blood pressure and temperature and heart rate have all lowered. In extreme cases, you might even pass out or lose consciousness. Now, I realize that some of this may sound extreme to many of you, but it does happen in cases of betrayal trauma. Both partners are frequently at some place in this fight, flight, freeze, collapse continuum and are rarely at the same place at the same time, which contributes to the destructive cycle that couples dealing with trauma of infidelity find themselves in. The impact of this cycle on cortisol levels increasing or randomly spiking has a big impact on the immune system and your overall health. Even long after the initial discovery or disclosure of an affair, it's quite possible for the brain to be inundated with reminders and then bathed in adrenaline and cortisol. And this is why it's so hard for your brain to process all this traumatic event, and refuses to let its guard down. It's this heightened sense of fear and loneliness or aloneness that causes the symptoms of PTSD. I'm recording this video today because from doing this work for almost 2 decades, I've seen distorted and adaptive bonds form between partners. Some people call this trauma bonds or betrayal bonds or hysterical bonding. I think we're kind of referring to all the same thing no matter what you call it. But these trauma bonds look different in every relationship, and here's some examples that I've seen over the years. A fixation on the affair and what happened and why. And then alternating between wanting a divorce and wanting to work it out. Or you and your mate continue to have this destructive arguments over the same thing over and over and over again. Or you keep your relationship hidden from others that might judge you for trying to work it out. Or you break commitments to yourself and to each other and still expect things to get better. And in the sexual relationship, one minute it feels like a renewed sense of connection, and then in the next or later, these painful memories and outbursts resurface. And I'll just say, to break this cycle, you got to get help as soon as possible. John Gottman's research shows that couples wait 6 years too late to get any kind of help. And we at Affair Recovery have seen couples trying to repair the damage of infidelity or sexual addiction on their own, only to create more and more collateral damage after discovery. You got to get help. One of the things we need to do is heal our wounds from childhood and adolescence that are being triggered by this infidelity. And we need help in how to have better conversations about the infidelity itself. And I can think of no better place to start than at Affair Recovery's EMS Weekend. It's a 3-day intensive that has helped thousands of couples over the years begin to work through the nuances of betrayal trauma and avoid the cycle of trauma bonding. You can get all the details at affairrecovery.com under the Programs tab. Thanks for joining me. It's always good to be with you, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks so much.